Hello friends, my name is Leigh and I share videos about photography as an art and as a lifestyle. Today we have a fun lens to look at. TTArtisan is crushing it when it comes to low-cost, daily use lenses that scratch the creative itch that you usually just can't seem to reach. That may sound weird, but it's the best way that I could think of to describe their collection of lenses. They have lenses available for a variety of mirrorless mounts, an M mount, and today I'm reviewing an M42 lens that Raymond has a nickname for. The Bokehnator, the Bokehnator, that's what it is. If you think this sounds like a sales pitch, it's not. Today's video is not sponsored. Well, it's not sponsored by TTArtisan. More on the sponsor in a moment. But first, today's lens. The M42 mount 100mm f2.8 bubble bokeh. And that last part isn't just a descriptor, it's actually part of the name of the lens. How about that compared to many companies that have a difficult to decipher series of letters or numbers in their lens names? Bubble bokeh. In a mild telephoto focal length with a wide aperture on a lens that lists for $155 in the US. And this lens sits alongside other lenses in their lineup like the 50mm f1.4 tilt lens, the 50mm f2 pancake lens for well under $100. They have an 11mm f2.8 180 degree fisheye. And the list goes on, and that's just their full frame lenses. They have APS-C lenses, and even now some with autofocus. In short, they're making lenses that we want, that many other manufacturers aren't willing to make. And this 100mm f2.8 bubble bokeh lens seems to exemplify their philosophy. First, it's a super low price. Normally, Raymond and I look at the overall value of gear instead of just shopping for price, but lenses like this one at $155 fall into impulse buy territory while offering tremendous value and performance. Does this perform like a $5,000 lens? Honestly, it depends on what you're after. Before we go any further, let's thank the sponsor of this portion of the video, Frames. The company reached out to me a couple of months ago asking about working together. Because it was an actual printed photography magazine, and you just don't see those too often these days, I checked them out. Lo and behold, this small company is creating beautiful printed editions on a quarterly basis. I don't even really want to call them magazines. They seem like so much more than that. They're really beautifully printed, thick tomes. In case you couldn't tell by the stacks of art books that you often see around my office, I love art books. And when I received these in the mail, I was delighted. Aside from the high-end printing, I'm discovering and I'm learning about different photographers in each edition. I love it. I will add a link in the description for you to learn more and to subscribe. My contact over there also told me that they just started something new. Your subscription will also include the Frames Photography Circle membership. It's their international photography club where they host live online events with some of the most inspiring and respected photographers, and they also offer members a dedicated internal platform and Circle app allowing you to interact with each other, to share your work and communicate directly among each other. It's just such a cool concept. And thank you to Frames magazine for supporting this channel. Okay, back to the lens. The name of the game here is bokeh. The out of focus highlights that us interchangeable lens junkies seem to often crave. On the TTArtisan website, they accurately describe a soap bubble bokeh effect that this lens produces. It can be soft and creamy bokeh under the right circumstances, but when it comes to points of light in the background, these out of focus highlights have a firm outline around the highlights, creating a whimsical artistic effect and atmosphere. And to show this off, I taped a whole bunch of hanging string lights to the ceiling to capture some portraits and to really put the soap bubble effect to work. While you can shoot this lens at a number of aperture settings, as we did, the real star of the show for this lens is f2.8. At this aperture, you get the wildest, biggest, most bokeh effects and a slightly softer image than at narrower settings. However, we found that the softness perfectly complemented the bokeh effects, much like we'd expect from a Lens Baby Velvet or other lenses that are intended to give you a more analog style, dreamy memory sort of a look, rather than absolute technical or clinical sharpness. And in situations like these butterflies where we wanted a bit more sharpness, we stopped down just 1 or 2 clicks to f4 and we had a fantastic bokeh and a sharper main subject. I want to be clear, I'm not making excuses for this lens at f2.8. I am letting you know that if you are looking for absolute technical sharpness, you would be paying much more for that at 100 millimeters. You'd have a much heavier lens at f2.8 and you would not have the elegant, dreamy bokeh effects that this lens offers. For us, this brings the feeling of analog film photography right here on our Lumix S5 II and our Leica SL2, but you're not limited to bodies that we used this lens on, and here's why. This lens, as I mentioned earlier, has an M42 mount. This mount was used by a few different manufacturers decades ago and was basically obsolete by 1980. However, the magic of mirrorless having a shorter flange distance than many old lens mounts, almost every legacy mount is in play because you have adapters. If you use the Nikon Z mount, L mount, Sony E mount, Canon, Fujifilm, and even a medium format mirrorless, you can purchase an M42 adapter for your mount, as we did for the L mount, and you connect this lens to your camera. Then we chose aperture priority, allowing the camera to do the rest to get perfect exposure, and we were doing our portraits and capturing butterflies and fantastic desert flowers and plants. Even with the adapter between the camera and the lens, the theme here is simplicity. The basics, and a very film-like experience, but with the handling of the lens and the results in both still images and video. One thing that Raymond and I have talked about a lot recently is bringing the basics back into the equation. We spent years assembling a collection of fairly expensive, very sharp, very heavy, and very capable lenses, and they're all back here. They've gotten a ton of use, but the lenses that we pick up and shoot with the most lately are the lighter lenses, some less capable, less sharp, and less expensive than the big tanks. Depending on the lens, they may scratch our artistic itch. They're often super easy to carry around, and we find ourselves studying and actually printing the results more than we do when we're shooting with more expensive gear, getting more technically correct images. We're just enjoying the process more. Remember, photography is painting with light. And talking about true art for a moment, there are all sorts of ways to render a scene in almost any artistic media. Why should photography be any different? Why can't the character and personality of the lens be a part of that artistic equation? And the fact is that it can, and you know what? It arguably should. I want to thank TTArtisan for sending us this lens to experiment with and to shoot with. No one ever tells us what to say, and we give you our conclusions straight from our experiences. And I can truly say that with the artistic itch that this lens scratches, the lightweight, the low price, it's a winner for us. And it's a bonus that it's an M42 screw mount because it's so quirky and different for a new lens in 2024 that, I don't know, we just can't not love it. You can go full high fidelity with this lens with the right settings and subject, or you can soak up that bubble bokeh by setting the lens to f2.8, finding a backlit subject, and get those bubbly, bokeh-y points of light looking awesome. Thank you for checking out this video. Of course, I have added links in the description to this lens and some of the M42 adapters that work best for modern mirrorless cameras with this lens. I've also added a link for you to learn more about Frames magazine. Thank you again to Frames for sponsoring a portion of this video. Remember, there is a link to them in the description as well. And thank you for watching.